Retro.
What's up, guys? This is Daniel Logan, Boba Fett from Attack of the Clones, The Clone Wars, Book of Boba, Skywalker Saga game, and hopefully many more things in the Star Wars galaxy. You are listening to Jay and Dennis on Podcast Stardust. Yep, this is the way I've spoken.
Welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley, and normally I'm joined by my co-host Jay Krebs, but I split the last episode into two, and so she wasn't here while I was doing that in editing, so I'm going to go ahead and do the intro by myself. We're going to be picking up on Part 7 of our discussion of Revenge of the Sith here in just a moment. I'll just want to remind you that you can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Podcast Stardust. So with that, I'll just say the digital line, the signal's boosted to maximum output, the shield's down, you're now broadcasting to the galaxy. So here is the second half of our discussion of Part 7, if that's not complicated enough, of Revenge of the Sith, featuring Tom Gross from Teachers in the Dungeon. Jay, I'll give you a chance to talk about this scene. What stands out to you from all this?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, how glorious is it that we can sit here and even as much as you said, Tom, we've seen this movie how many times, but yet we can still go down these amazing rabbit holes of theory and, cogitating the cosmos and whatnot. So, okay. So for me, I could definitely go down a big old rabbit hole on this, but I think, as we've talked about before with Anakin, he is always kind of in this morally gray area in a lot of ways. He wants to have his cake and eat it too. I mean, Dennis and I were just talking about this with even in the Clone Wars and with Padme. He doesn't want to leave the order. He wants to be able to have Padme, but and so I feel that Anakin truly does want to do the right thing. And by having his cake and eating it too, he needs Palpatine alive because he can still be a Jedi, but he can still learn a little bit about the dark side and he can still save Padme and he can just do it all. He's the chosen one. Why can't I do it all? So, I think as you were saying, Tom, he needed to just stay put. He needed to stay at the temple. And of course, that was by design, that all happened that way. But I feel like Anakin needed to go with Mace and needed to see all this because he walked in at the worst time possible. Yes. It's almost like, you walk into a room when your kids are fighting and you have no idea how the fight started and everybody's pointing fingers at each other, kind of a thing. And that's kind of what this is all about. He's doing this and, oh, don't do this, Anakin, you need me. And then finally, when Anakin lobs off Mace's arm and he's writhing in pain, you see Palpatine get this like little boy giddy smile on his face, like, yes. And then unlimited power. So it's so incredible the way that, it's the butterfly effect, right? It's this whole chaos theory of just cascading things that happen and happen and happen and happen. And it's just incredible. That we can sit here all these years later and we can say, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. Yeah. So what do you think, Dennis?
Well, I think a lot of things here. And we've been addressing a lot of stuff from the scene. I think the segment that we discussed prior to this has Anakin sitting in the chambers of the Jedi Council. And we get the images of Padme sitting in her apartment. And you can tell there's these, I think the music is called Padme's Ruminations or something like that. Yes. But it's as much as Anakin's Ruminations as it is as hers. And he leaves there in tears because he is so afraid of losing her that, he cannot sit still. He has to go be a part of everything that's about to happen. So he shows up here. I don't think he really thought there was a legitimate chance that Windu and the Jedi were going to leave Palpatine alive and that there was going to be stand trial. And then Anakin was somehow going to have the access to him that he needed in order to learn this power. And so, he shows up here, and he pleads with Mace Windu. He must stand trial. And Mace Windu's response is, he has control of the Senate and the courts. He is too dangerous to be left alive. And then his response is, it's not the Jedi way, which, I'm sorry, is an incredibly hypocritical statement coming out of Anakin's mouth. And he says, he must live. I need him. Those things aren't the Jedi way here. I believe he did not want to kill Mace Windu. I don't think he really wanted to slice off Mace Windu's arm, but he is so desperate in this moment. He tells Palpatine after all of this, it's like, he agrees to become Palpatine's apprentice, but under these conditions. Just help me save Padme's life. I can't live without her. And once Palpatine kind of confirms that, yeah, I'll help you with that. To cheat death is the power of it. Only one is a cheat. But work together. I know we can discover the secret. And then he says, I pledge myself to your teachings. That's what this is all about. I mean, it's it's an act of desperation. God forbid anybody should have to be in that position when they're so desperate that they're willing to do anything. But he's lived this nightmare before with his mother. He had the visions. He couldn't prevent her death. He's having the visions of Padme, and he's fearful that she's going to die. And absolutely, if he had sat still, I suspect all those visions would have gone away. And then he would have had to answer to the Jedi Council. What do you mean you're married? What do you mean your wife is pregnant? You got to get out of the order. But he would have fulfilled the role of the chosen one by getting rid of the Sith in the process here. And that's the tragedy. In this moment, he made the wrong decision. Right. And then, the rest is history with what we get in the original trilogy. So,
yeah,
this is backed up with him. He takes the pledge. He pledges himself to Darth Sidious, and Sidious continues to feed his ego. Yeah, the Force is strong with you. A powerful Sith you will become. Henceforth, you shall be known as Darth Vader. And then, thank you, my master. And then, very classically delivered Ian McDermott line, rise. So, and this of all this. Yeah, they use that very well in the trailer for this movie. But Yoda just senses a disturbance in the Force in the middle of all this. Okay, I don't know why this time, but watching it in preparation for this discussion, that really, really grabbed my attention. What do you think precisely it was that Yoda was sensing here? Tom, what do you think?
I feel like I don't know if it's similar or not, but it reminds me of when Alderaan is destroyed and Ben Kenobi feels that all those voices cried out. Now that's a little different because it's a planet and it's masses of people. I think, I feel like Yoda senses the shift in the balance of the Force. And that because he's so powerful in the Force, he feels it differently than everybody else. And so when that shift happens, we even see him. He kind of loses his balance, and does he put his hand in his chest, I think? And so I feel like he's feeling the galactic shift in the Force because he is the chosen one, and he's being manipulated and drawn in by the most powerful Sith, with Palpatine. And so I think it's the balance that Yoda is feeling.
Mm-hmm. Jay?
Yeah, I would agree. And that's exactly what I was thinking was that shift. And I also thought of the example of Obi-Wan when Alderaan explodes. And I just think that that's such a wonderful way to tie in the original trilogy to the prequel trilogy in that way, and kind of give people that bridge to say, oh yeah, Obi-Wan felt the same thing. And I think for Yoda, of course, he is the oldest Jedi that we have, and he's had the most experience. And that also because the fact that Anakin's, midichlorian count, he's supposed to be the chosen one. So he has maybe more of a connectivity in the fabric of the Force that could be alerted to Yoda. You know what I mean? In terms of that happening, that shift, as you said, Tom, happening. But what do you think, Dennis?
I think you all are right. I think on the previous 99 some odd viewings I've had of this movie prior to this, I think it was my response was, oh, that's an initial response to Mace Windu dying, because Mace was such a powerful Jedi, and he's being thrown out the window. That's a terrible loss in the Force that would have ripples. He would sense that. But since then, I was like, well, when Qui-Gon presents Anakin to the Jedi Council, it's like, I've discovered a divergence in the Force. And it probably helps that I've been reading the High Republic lately, and there's some discussion of versions of the Forces lately there, which brought this to mind. But this vergence in the Force just moved from the light side to the dark side. And so, yeah, I think you're both right. I think there is this massive shift, and there is this ripple through the Force, and he kind of is being struck by that, and that there's all this dark stuff to come. I don't think he has a vision necessarily in that moment, but again, some sort of a ripple that, this is bad. Whatever just happened, even if he doesn't know specifically that it was Mace Windu that perished, that something massive just happened here, and it is bad. It is, what was it? Attack of the Clones, where the conversation had between him and Mace Windu, where Mace is suggesting that, maybe we need to inform the Senate that our ability to commune with the Force has been diminished here. And Yoda's response to that is, no need to tell them about that until we actually have something to report. And now here, there has been an even more massive shift in everything that just happened. The light side just lost one of its biggest champions, and two of its biggest champions. Mace died, and Anakin traded sides. So,
right. I have a real quick question before we move on, and I don't want to go down another rabbit hole here, but one thing that I thought about, and this is because I was just revisiting the Darth Bane trilogy. I just finished listening to the first of the trilogy again, as is my summer tradition for myself. But I know, and of course, this is Legends, but in the past, the Sith Lords had always chosen their Darth name, like whatever they were giving up, and then choosing whatever they wanted to be. And I believe even through a lot of canon types of references that it was still true. And I'm wondering when that shift happened, or was this something that Palpatine just did in naming Anakin as Darth Vader? Who was the first Sith Lord that was named by their master, or was Anakin the first? Do either of you know?
No. I mean, that would be cool to have the answer to, but I think
I don't have
really the difference is George Lucas didn't pay attention to Legends back then. There was occasionally a character that caught his attention through a comic or whatever, and he'd want to Aayla Secura comes to mind. But other than that, it was he told the story he wanted to. And I mean, with Darth Bane, it was him choosing a name because that is what his father, called him. You're a Bane. You bane to my existence. But this time around, there's something to it with Sidious seemingly communing with the dark side of the Force to, what is this apprentice before me? Oh, he's Vader. No idea what that means, other than as a Dutch word for father, or similar word for father here. But just I think there's something to it with the Force coming up with this name for Anakin.
But did it? I have a feeling that Palpatine was up at night thinking about what he would name Anakin, just like you would.
Possible, yeah.
It was the next name on the top of the list,
Yeah.
Or maybe it's like hurricanes, it's like, okay, it's the next one on the hurricane list.
Tyrannus.
I mean,
we have an unnamed Sith Lord that started with a U, and we'll figure out him sometime in another story. But
gosh,
that didn't last long. Okay. Okay, and so now we've got Anakin and Palpatine making plans, and this seems like, to me, the biggest PR session ever, because Palpatine is talking about how, well, it's apparent to me that since you didn't know about the Jedi's plan to overthrow the Republic, that you were not the only one involved in their plot. So therefore, we have to kill them all. And Anakin's response to that is, yeah, I agree, because the Jedi's next move will be to kill us and all the senators, which is just like, this is what we're going to tell the people, right? there's no evidence for any of this. And
Right.
the conclusion is that every single Jedi is now in the Republic. They got to move quickly. And this includes against your friend Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is kind of almost like a casual way of Sidious throwing out there. It's like, one last loyalty check. How do you feel about Obi-Wan? Oh yeah, he's got to die too. Great, we're on the same page. And then Palpatine sends Anakin to the Jedi Temple to kill all the Jedi, and then his next job after that is to go to Mustafar and wipe out all of the Separatist leadership. And then his final proclamation here is that once more the Sith will rule the galaxy, and we shall have peace. I got so many thoughts about this, but Tom, what stands out to you from here?
I feel like this is the moment that Palpatine has been looking for so long. All of his machinations, all of his manipulations come together here. He needed one thing, and he needed Anakin Skywalker, because now he has a Sith that's powerful enough, has been manipulated by him enough, and that carrot is still there. It's not like he sold the bank to get Anakin over. The carrot of, we need to save Padme, that's still out there. So of course Anakin's going to remain loyal because he's the only one. And we have to do it together. And so every time I watch this, I'm like, wow, in this, 2-minute moment where he has this conversation with Anakin, I feel like everything is revealed, because Anakin asked the right questions. Well, what about all the Jedi that are around the galaxy? And Palpatine's like, oh yeah, I got that covered. Don't you worry.
Yeah,
I've got this
exactly.
thing. And so
Mhm.
like, and then, what about those separatists? Oh, you go to Mustafar, you take care of the separatists. I mean, everything comes down to this. And it's kind of like, what's left? And you nailed, to me, you nailed the hammer right on the top of the nail when you said he tests him with Obi-Wan, because that really is probably the last thing that might turn Anakin, which I don't know how you guys feel. And this is a conversation that you'll have later, but I don't know if Obi-Wan ever had a chance on that fight on Mustafar. But like I said, you guys can save that for another day. So to me, this whole moment is just like, here are my cards. I'm laying them down on the table because we just won, dude. And it because he says the line that you said, we will have the nice pause, peace. And then that smile, like that hint of smile, like, we got him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not peace for everybody. Dude, this is peace for you and me. This is peace. Yeah, it's gonna be our own peace. No, I really like this because if I don't like I said, I don't remember specifically if it's the first time I saw this or if it was a couple times in, but like when all the pieces are coming together, you realize that he has had this plan established for quite some time. He just needed a few key pieces, and one of those was Anakin Skywalker.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well said. Woo. I
Mm-hmm.
can't add much more to that. But I mean, yeah, we know that Palpatine's played the long game, right? I mean, that's just and you're right. He just laid it out all on the table for Anakin. Like, now I can finally again reveal myself and just let this be known. And I do think in some ways Palpatine felt like his version of peace anyways is very Thanos-esque. You know what I mean? It
Mm-hmm.
makes sense from his point of view. And, he feels that using the dark side to subjugate everyone is doing everybody else a favor, And we even saw going forward that, the empire was something that people didn't hate because it did give them order and it did give them peace in a lot of ways. And even as Jin said, it's not a problem if you don't look up, referring to the empire flag. So, yeah, it's just there's so many implications to this scene right here. And again, just how far reaching these plans of Palpatine's actually were. Just blows your mind.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Anakin is so willfully blind in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
Because what do you mean we shall have peace now? You engineered this whole thing. This is not a situation where the galaxy is at war and the Sith stepped in to put an end to it. No. The Sith engineered this conflict. They drove a division. They took advantage of every opportunity to make the Separatists want to rebel, as opposed to stepping in and using their power and influence to get the people the things they needed. They generated a galactic conflict where millions, billions, possibly trillions died so that they could take control and then promise peace. And this peace that everyone loves under the empire that follows this is all based on a lie. It's not an earned accolade when it comes down to this. They engineered this, and then they suppress dissent after it when it comes up there. It's like, you get peace, but under our terms. You get peace, but you have to live by, we're going to destroy worlds so that we can build a Death Star to maintain this peace. So it's not peace for all, it's peace for some at the cost of everybody else. And so this whole notion that, the Jedi will act quickly to kill us and the sinners. What are you talking about? The Jedi showed up here to arrest you so that the Senate could put you on trial and then elect a new leader. This is revisionist history, and every single Jedi is now enemy of the Republic, because since you're the only one that came to my aid, you are the only one that knew. This is them rehearsing the story that they're getting ready to tell. They can't honestly believe any of this. But what choice does Anakin have? He's made his decision, which is, if I am going to save Padme's life, I have to go with the guy who promised me that he'll tell me how to do it. And what if I say, like, whoa, what are you talking about now? I mean, it's just he's bought into this, and he has absolutely no choice but to follow along with this to get what he wants. And it's again, I understand the Jedi Order could have done better when it came to Anakin and preventing the dark side, but at the same time, Anakin made decisions, and he's prior to the fall and after the fall, and he doesn't even bat an eye here. There's this big plot from the Jedi. I agree. Really? I mean, you were frustrated with them. I get that, but there was no evidence of any plot to destroy the Emperor and overthrow the Republic prior to this, and so it is him believing, it's this cognitive dissonance, is him believing what he has to believe in order to get to the next step of all this.
Yeah. And to your point too, Dennis, real quick, I want to mention this also, is that you can tell the moment that Anakin truly opens himself up to this fate, in that, he looks up at Palpatine and he's kind of got this like sneer on his face, and you almost see that he's just allowing the dark side to just flood into him. And it's at that point that he is so overtaken and intoxicated with the dark side that I don't think he can see the nose in front of his face, kind of thing. He's just so blinded to everything else at that point. And you can see he's almost numb. What about the Jedi spread out over the galaxy? It's almost like, he's a zombie at that point. His entire, like, he had a blood transfusion almost, and he's weakened because of it in a way. It's just his whole demeanor completely changes. And I absolutely applaud Hayden Christensen for that. I know he always gets so much guff, but I just think that this was acted so brilliantly.
Well, and as Tom pointed out earlier, that line from Anakin, after he's taken off Mace Windu's hand and then Mace gets thrown out the window, what have I done? That is his last moment of regret in this entire thing, which is and everything after that is like, he has no choice but to buy in. And, jumping ahead, Padme dies at the end of this movie, and he's Darth Vader. And then, like, what choice does he have but to continue to follow down that path? Because there's nothing else left for him. The Jedi are gone. He turned on everything he ever knew. As a kid, he said, it's being a Jedi is what he always wanted. And he turns his back on that because of this promise that is flimsy, that, he'll get the power to save Padme's life. So he has no choice but to commit to this. And he makes some very, very dark decisions. And the fact that he just kind of overlooks all these inconsistencies, these logical fallacies that Palpatine is putting out there about this, that, every Jedi was involved, so I have to kill them all. Yeah, the Jedi's plot is to kill us and then the Senate. And yeah, now we'll have peace. Okay. All right. Well, that's where you are now. So,
gosh, the whole time we're sitting here talking about this, I'm just thinking about, oh my God, Anakin was dealing with a lot of stuff.
mm-hmm.
So it's easy to see why he would miss those inconsistencies. I mean, let's think about all of the like powerful things going on in him. First of all, he's in love. And his love is going to have a child soon. That's powerful. He has lived years being manipulated by Palpatine, treating him as a friend, treating him as a confidant, treating him, giving him little powers here and there because, well, they don't trust you, but I trust you, telling him little secrets, all of this. I often do wonder, like, Anakin, does he see the evil of Palpatine, or does he still see Palpatine as he did when he was a child and Palpatine was a senator, and they rescued Naboo, and Palpatine says, we're going to keep an eye on you. You got a bright future. Like, is that the Palpatine that Anakin still sees? I sometimes I wonder. But then on top of that, he is the chosen one. He has the expectations of greatness, but the people that have given him that expectation are doing nothing but frustrating him time and time again. And so when and then on top of all of that, he has a history of trauma with loss. So, right. I mean, gosh, as I'm sitting here, I'm like, God, the poor guy. Mm-hmm. Like, who would he? I mean, so that's where I go back to like Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is like the key here because he's the only one that sees Anakin for who he is. I feel like Anakin's the only one that sees, or I'm sorry, Obi-Wan's the only one that sees all of those pressures happening. I mean, I'm your brother, and he was. I mean, I don't think even Padme didn't see all of that. She saw the love, she saw his frustration, but she didn't really understand why. I mean, she had great expectations too as a queen and then a senator, and she's doing just fine. So it's probably a little bit like, Anakin, I don't understand why all the conflict with the Jedi Council. So I don't know. He's got a lot going on. I do feel for Anakin, and it's just too bad in the long run that it happened. I mean, it's great for us as fans of the of the franchise, but man, what an awful life he had to live.
Yeah,
well, is that right? I don't know if that's right.
Well, consider just a moment ago, as you pointed out earlier in this conversation, Tom, he discovered that Palpatine was a Sith Lord, and one of the things he says to Palpatine, Palpatine asks him, "Are you going to kill me?" And Anakin's response is, "I would sure like to." And Palpatine loves that. You could see him just eating it up in that moment. It's like, I know you do. It makes you powerful. And Anakin goes and turns him in because he knows it's the right thing to do. But he's at his end with this. It's that he tells Palpatine, you just help me save Padme. I can't live without her. And that's ultimately the thing that Palpatine uses to control him, is that desperation there. And Anakin dives right into it. And even after Padme dies and Anakin is a shell of the man that he used to be, what else does he have now? Nothing. The Republic is gone. The Jedi are gone. Padme is gone. All he's got left is his hate for himself more than anybody else after the decisions he's made. But that's a discussion we'll save for the end of the movie because we're going long. But let's move on just a bit here. Anakin does make his move on the Jedi Temple. He leads the clones right up to the front door, and we get the great theme from John Williams as he does so. Such iconic imagery of the clones marching, the 501st marching behind Anakin / Darth Vader as they do that. And then we get to Utapau, where the battle is raging on there, and Obi-Wan catches up with Commander Cody, who gives him his lightsaber back. And then he rides off just as Palpatine is issuing Order 66. So Cody orders a tank to blast Obi-Wan, and he falls into the pool of water at the bottom of the depression there on Utapau. again, two big scenes here. The action's changing. We're kind of at like act 3.5 in the movie. Tom, what stands out to you from these scenes?
First is, thank goodness that clone tanker shot like a stormtrooper and not like a clone.
There you go.
Because that could have been it, but it's pretty darn close. Yeah, the irony of Cody giving him his lightsaber moments before Order 66 is given is just so it does not it is not missed on me how important that would have been, how different that would have been had he not had his lights. I mean, you might think, well, Obi-Wan is, but there's more symbolic to that. There's something more symbolic to that than the actual having to have the lightsaber. So something that really strikes me in this is, again, the iconic image of the clone army marching behind him and the music, and just how, I told you in the opening when we were talking that, the one, of the few things I remember about watching this film, it's I really got emotional. And I think this led to that, but then it was, I'm sorry, when I say this, the marching on the Jedi Temple sort of brought that emotion into me. But then it was when Cody betrays Obi-Wan by following the orders and shoots him down, and just everything felt so hopeless. Like nothing could stop what was happening, and that this had all been a setup. It just the I don't know. It's just an emotional moment of the movie. I mean, goodness.
It is. It's so heartbreaking. And the music, oh my gosh. I mean, it's just orchestrated so well. And of course, John Williams is just a complete genius. But I wonder often, how did the 501st know that Anakin was exempted from Order 66? I mean, did they have a little board meeting with Palpatine? Was there like a command override in the biochip that was specific to Anakin, because Palpatine was planning this the whole time, that said, yeah, kill every Jedi. Oh, except Anakin Skywalker, because he's
Right.
my favorite, kind of thing. Or was it something that, they just implicitly knew that, because this, I don't like, what do you guys think? I've often wondered that, because obviously he marches on the temple with his clone army, which knew him as a Jedi.
This has never come to mind.
Yeah,
but it's a great moment. Yeah, it's a great thought.
Right. It's murky because subsequent canon, like comics and stuff like that, have pointed out once a Jedi, always a Jedi, and apparently the Order 66, and anyone who's a Jedi is subject to that. But I'm just going to chalk it up to Palpatine's long run thinking. He's got the plans that run the gamut here, and he's been anticipating Anakin growing into a powerful Jedi and someone that he could use in the future, ever since he met Anakin 13 years ago at this point. So I guess that's the reasoning there, but yeah, don't have a specific answer for that one. But yeah, I think it's funny you brought up the whole right after Obi-Wan got his lightsaber back from Commander Cody. I know in the novelization there is a line in there somewhere where Cody's like, really, you couldn't have issued this order just a moment ago before I gave him his bloody lightsaber back? Which is a neat little moment here. Yeah. And then we get Order 66 issued here, and we get this montage of Jedi being killed around the galaxy. Now, it's quote unquote only for Jedi. We see Ki-Adi-Mundi get turned on by his troops as Sakura is leading her troops through the forest of Felucia, and then they shoot her down. Yoda starts reacting to this, and then Plo Koon gets shot down on Cato Maioria, and Stas Ali is on a speeder bike, and then the clones that are escorting her fall back and then take her out from behind very sneakily. Nobody sees it coming here. It's Yoda is sensing everything that's going on as the Jedi die, but the individual Jedi don't really grasp anything has changed until it's just a moment too late. Then this gets followed up with Yoda. He's he's been in tune with the Force, and then when the two clones come for him, he gets that grimace on his face, pulls out his lightsaber, jumps up and beheads the both of them there. I don't know that there's necessarily a ton to talk about here other than the tragedy of the Jedi falling in this case. And it's, of course, again, it's 4 Jedi to die, but we get the point. The Jedi all over the galaxy, just like Palpatine said was going to happen, are going to be taken care of here. And Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, Aayla Secura, Sassali, these are characters we've seen through the trilogy, mainly in the background. They're not major characters, but they're not insignificant as well. At least a couple of them are members of the Jedi Council. But takeaways, impressions, thoughts about the issuance of Order 66, Tom?
I mean, to me, the importance was what they represent together than any of them necessarily individually. I think for me anyway, because it's the montage that really draws the emotion out. I just have 2 things to mention about this. One of them is just sort of an amusing thought that I've always had, and it's film choice and acting choice, nothing really to do with the story. It's the choice that they gave Aayla Secura as an actress. I don't remember her name, but she does a very mid 20th century film death where she throws her hand up over her head and does the fall. It wasn't, to me, it was a little melodramatic. I would have rather seen her go down like Ki-Adi-Mundi or the others that were very very dramatic and death-like. That's one thing. The other is, I've had people ask me, well, why did Yoda know and no one else knew? So to me, it's 2 answers. One that you've already given, and that is that he's already felt it. The other, and then the other reason is, to me, is all the others are in active combat. So anything that they might have felt in the Force, it could be anything. Yoda, I almost said Grogu. Yoda he's in a more of a general position and has much more ability to attune to what's going on in the galaxy than he is, charging a line or flying a ship or something like that. And so, I mean, though it's just logistics and how we make sense of the movie. But to me, that's how Yoda knows. Besides him just being the most powerful and he's the most awesome Jedi ever. So it's this passage here is just all about the emotion and seeing Palpatine's master plan in play.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Jay, your thoughts?
Well, for Order 66 to play out the way that it did on screen, we got to see the quote unquote marquee Jedi that went down. And obviously that was just sort of a little snapshot of what was happening all over the galaxy. And, I'm with you, Tom, with Amy Allen. She was actually not even an actress to start with. She was part of the film crew. And and George Lucas was like, she looks like she needs to be in this. So she was. And so I don't think she had a whole lot of formal, acting training, but you're right. It's like, oh, woe is me. I'm going down amongst the Felucia pretty plants. But, as far as now that we have all of this other evidence of what was going on, and especially now that we have season 7 of the Clone Wars as well, there's so much depth that we've been able to add to this, and how much more far reaching, and even seeing, people like Caleb Doob, for example, Kanan himself that went through all of this, and the Bad Batch and the way that all happened. It just gives us so much more headcanon to work with. And I appreciate that so much. And, quick aside too, there's a lot of people that have put together montages of Order 66 and splicing in season 7 of the Clone Wars. And I honestly just can't get enough of it. It makes me cry. It gives me chills every time. It's just, because it's a turning point. I mean, it's truly you talk about Ahsoka being called Fulcrum. I mean, this is the true fulcrum point of the entire galactic history happening at this point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think y'all are right. That's Yoda's already on to something that just happened with, some sort of shift on the Force. And then getting back to the whole Obi-Wan, sensing in the New Hope, it's like a million voices cried out in panic and were suddenly silenced. Well, it's only magnified, you can imagine, with these people who are so in tune with the Force, that have these heightened Force powers, and suddenly they're getting snuffed out, their absence would be felt. And then so he's on the alert, and then suddenly he can sense animosity coming up behind him, and then he's able to take it out. But that's such a it's such a great scene. We meet Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back. He is the frail little Jedi Master, and then he proves how powerful he is with the Force by doing things, by lifting an X-Wing out of a swamp. And of course, in Attack of the Clones, we get to see him go mano a mano with Count Dooku. Mm-hmm. But just these moments here, and then we'll get some more over the course of this movie where, against the common soldier, no one stands a chance about this. No. This is Force mastery. This is a Jedi Master. And I, as another side, watching him jump up on Chewbacca's back and seeing the running off.
Love that.
To save it.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, okay. Well, this brings us to the end of the segment. This has been fantastic. We got a lot of great discussion out of this, especially for a segment that is so action driven as opposed to dialogue driven. It's quite impressive that there was so much to talk about here. But Tom, again, thank you so much for joining us for this. As usual, you bring your A game. You give us a lot to think about, and I really appreciate that. Before you go, just want to let you have the chance to remind everybody where they can find your podcast and where else you all can be found on social media and elsewhere, and just remind everybody what's going on with Teachers in the Dungeon.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. First of all, it's always a pleasure to be here on Podcast Stardust with you and Jay. This is a highlight when you contact me and ask me to come on. I love talking to you guys about Star Wars. Wish I had an opportunity to do it more often. So Teachers in the Dungeon is the podcast that I'm coming from, and that is myself and Dan Ream we're the co-hosts and creators of Teachers in the Dungeon. Even if you're like on the fence, Dungeons and Dragons, but if you love adventure and if you love Star Wars, you love adventure. If you love Star Wars, you love fantasy. And that's really what role playing builds around, is we're creating our own stories with dice, making some decisions for us and things like that. And so those are the things we talk about on Teachers in the Dungeon. We talk about fantastical creatures like dragons, and we talk about wonderful adventure in the dungeons. That's our theme for this year, is Dungeons and Dragons. So we're breaking down all of the most famous dungeons in Dungeons and Dragons, and we're breaking down all of the dragons and talking about them specifically. That is a couple of the different shows you'll find during the week. So yeah, I'd love to have you join us. Give us a try. Join us in the dungeon there. We are on Spotify and Apple podcasts and all those good places. You can find Teachers in the Dungeon on YouTube as well. We're also on Instagram and Facebook, Teachers in the Dungeon, and we're on Twitter at Dungeon Teachers. Me personally, I don't have my own podcast, but I do have a blog that I write called Seeking Positivity in the Galaxy that I've been kind of just carrying on for many, many years. It's sort of a hodgepodge. I talk about fantasy baseball. I talk about things that are fun in summer. But I try to focus on the positive things in life, the fun stuff. So if you like all that, you can join me there. Seeking Positivity in the Galaxy. That search will get you to my blog there. And personally, probably the best social media to catch me on is Twitter, and that is, oh my goodness, I believe it is Cycling Librarian is my handle there. So thanks again so much for having me.
Our pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much.
So there you have it. That was Tom Gross. Again, catch him on Teachers in the Dungeon. He just gave you all of his contacts, and he is on Draftline on Twitter. He had that realization a second after we finished recording with him. So go check him out there if you are still using the X/Twitter platform. But great discussion, Jay.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Tom always is just amazing. And his energy, his insights, he's always been such a wonderful get to have as a guest. So thank you once again, Tom, for all of those insights, for sure.
Yeah. He's always someone that we look forward to having on the show, and definitely deserving of the gold jacket. Someday we're going to have to make good on these gold jackets, but...
Oh, I know how to sew. So, we'll have to do that.
All right, we'll start looking at fabrics here before too long.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, with that, I just want to thank you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust and this installment of our Revenge of the Sith series. And if you've enjoyed that and you want to make sure you get future editions of the series and then whatever movie we end up covering next year, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your podcatcher of choice. You know how to do that. You found us this way. And once you've done with that and you want to get more shows from our catalog, the best place to head is retrozap.com, which has got the entire catalog of shows, all previous 915 episodes, which is going to be a whole lot more than you're likely to get on your podcatcher of choice. And there's a bunch of other great shows there covering all other aspects of geek culture, so go check it out. Jay, remind everybody what our social media contacts are one more time and where else we can be found on the internet.
You got it, Dennis. And I have to say, right at the very beginning, you don't know how tempted I was when I introduced myself to just simply say, and I am the Senate.
There you go.
I digress. So we are on Facebook and Instagram very conveniently at Podcast Stardust. And we also maintain some Pinterest boards over on our Pinterest page. So check that out. And then we also have our 2 YouTube outlets. So we have the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music. And so you can subscribe to both of those. We'd really appreciate that. And also leave us some comments about your thoughts on this segment of Revenge of the Sith, all the things that we talked about, or any of the episodes that you've tuned into. And then we also have a TeePublic store, and the link to that is in our show notes. So if you are in need of some new apparel or home goods with Podcast Stardust logos on them, we do have 7 different show logos available. And once again, if you hit up that link in the show notes and do purchase something, every one of those purchases does help to support the show, and we really do appreciate that. So thanks in advance.
All right. You want to remind everybody what you got going on in cosplay?
Sure. So always catch me on my Instagram at j.snipscosplay. And so I have my mains of Ahsoka, my 2 different versions of Hera, my original concept Mandalorian, my 4th sister Inquisitor, as well as much, much more. And once again, you can check that out on Instagram at j.snipscosplay.
All right. Upcoming on the show on Friday, we'll be getting back into the week's Star Wars news. At least that's the plan for the moment. And then on Monday, we recorded some shows in advance, and I'll be airing one of those. But we've kind of got some travel and other things going on here at the end of July. And right, so just be on the lookout for whatever happens then. And but with that having been said, thanks for listening to episode 916 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great rest of your week, and until next time, may the Force be